What does it mean to have representation? The consent of the governed. Does it mean that we simply show up every 2 years to vote for members of Congress and, depending on the cycle, for your senator, and also depending on the cycle for president and vice president? Is that all we do? Is that the beginning and end of it? Or do we actually get to know what they're doing in Washington when they're doing it? How can there be consent of the governed? How can there be self-government? The core of our republic, if we don't know what they're doing, or if we find out when it's too late. That's exactly what happened with Obamacare. That's exactly what happened with Dodd-Frank. That's exactly what's happening with so-called comprehensive immigration reform. That's exactly what's happening with the budget. Ladies and gentlemen, not to overstate it, but do you know what some of the great philosophers and thinkers have called this sort of thing? Do you know what Alexis de Tocqueville called it? Thomas Jefferson, and they're just two of many? They called it democratic despotism. Little d, democratic despotism, democratic tyranny. Now, I know when people inside the Beltway, whether they're in the media or the lobbying class, the consultants, or the politicians themselves. I know when I say things like this, they cringe or they roll their eyes. But I don't care about them. They're all in on it. I'm talking to you. I want to give you an example. An example right now. It's occurring right this moment as I speak. This is from the pretend news site called Politico, where a lot of laid-off and has-been Washington Compost reporters now work. Senators in the Gang of Eight were moving closer today to a deal on sweeping comprehensive immigration legislation, but last-minute haggling between big business and big labor complicated efforts to finalize an agreement before the 2-week Easter recess. Now, listen to that. So there are 8 senators. They're haggling over something. And so-called big business and so-called big labor are haggling over something. And you and I, we're not even at the table. And what do I mean by at the table? Are there hearings going on? Is there something being presented to we the people? Why are there only 8 members of the Senate making a determination on this? How can this be a representative republic? I don't even know if my representative's in on it. I don't even know if my senator's in on it. Same thing's going on in the House with 8 of them. This isn't the way this is supposed to function. This isn't representation. Sources familiar with the talks, so they get a leak, said that labor officials with the AFL-CIO had proposed a plan to attract lower-skilled foreign workers into the U.S. Sources said business officials, led by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, balked at the approach, forcing the negotiators to reopen the talks. So there are negotiations going on with some groups, with some people who apparently have access to these 8 and know what these 8 are doing, and we don't. And we, the people, are going to be left with whatever these buffoons do. Almost the exact same model, tyrannical model, was followed with Obamacare. Almost the exact same tyrannical model was followed with Dodd-Frank, which affects you in ways you don't even know right now. Your bank accounts, your savings, your pensions, your even student loans, you name it. How can we possibly participate in the governing of this nation if we don't know what they're doing? If we don't know what they're doing. I am not calling for direct democracy. That's absurd. I'm not calling for majoritarianism. I am calling for due deliberation. That's why we have representation. Due deliberation. In the open. These aren't national security secrets. With committee processes put in place. And I've been bringing this up more and more lately. because I want us to focus on it. And what you'll see when you listen to this program, many of you who've listened for a long time, you know. Those of you who are new to this, I'm saying something today, 3 or 4 months down the road, everybody will be talking about it. Not because I'm a genius, but because I focus on the heart of the matter. I'm not distracted. The static doesn't bother me. I don't let it get into my head. And I break down these issues and try and apply them to our Constitution and our first principles. There are supposed to be deliberations going on in the Senate and the House. Deliberations which you and I can watch, so we can participate if we choose to, so we can call our members of Congress if we choose to, so we can attend hearings if we choose to, so we can organize for or against something. But we don't know what's going on. Do we? And they want it that way. And they want it that way. So I thought I'd bring this up to you, and I'm going to keep bringing this up. The Senate, the greatest deliberative body, that is a joke. The House represents the people. That's a joke. We, the people, don't have the foggiest idea what's going on, other than through leaks and generalized information. That's not acceptable. That's exactly why Thomas Jefferson, who was not at the Constitutional Convention, he was in Paris. And by the way, John Adams wasn't at the Constitutional Convention. He was in England. But that's exactly why, in responding to James Madison's letter about the Constitution, Jefferson broadly supported it, strongly supported it. But he raised what he considered to be certain evils that he disliked, including the fact, he wrote in a postscript, and I've talked about this and have written about this, that bills introduced in this Congress, created by that Constitution, should stay engrossed, that is, placed on the public record for a year, unless it's an emergency. In which case, he said, should take 2/3 vote. But if it's a matter of routine business, it should be laid on the table for a year. And not one syllable should be changed. Not one word, he said. And then Congress can vote on it. He said, because without such a provision, this is an evil. And what he meant by this is democratic, little d, tyranny. Just because you vote for members of Congress doesn't mean you live in a republic. It doesn't mean you live in a republic. And right now, as I said in Ameritopia, and I mean it, this is a post-constitutional America in many ways. The statists have succeeded. The progressives, 100 years ago, who put in place a philosophy and advanced their cause, they've been very successful. Very successful. Anyway, when we come back, what is Obama doing offering $200 million to Jordan? What is Biden doing spending $1 million in 2 days? And now they're shutting down FAA towers? Air traffic control towers? You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm certainly not advocating this, but this is what revolutions are made of. Why do we adore our founding fathers? Why do we adore Abraham Lincoln? Why, ladies and gentlemen? Is it because they were good debaters? Is it because they were respectful when they spoke? Is it because, well, let me tell you why, in my opinion. Not only were they brilliant and courageous, these men, our forefathers, they may have debated among themselves. But when it came to their opponent, the King of England, they didn't debate at all. We face a different opponent than they did. It's more complicated, in fact. Much more complicated. When you have a relative handful of masterminds, these temporary politicians, and an army of bureaucrats issuing thousands of regulations a year, regulations that no one citizen, no matter how engaged, can possibly comprehend, can't even catalog. That's not a representative public. That's a mess. Our founding fathers wouldn't be soft-spoken in the face of such nonsense. They wouldn't start debating societies. They wouldn't say it's just a matter of us informing one another quietly but steadily. Oh, they would do that, but that's the least of it. They would stand up and raise their voices. And they would demand a stop to this. They would be assertive. They would be passionate, if not aggressive. This isn't a debating society, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we'll debate. We'll try to inform and educate, but we're well beyond that. Certain people have certain designs on us in this country, and they are fundamentally transforming it. Certain people who pretend to stand with us on principle simply do not. So what do? We talk quietly like this to each other? Do we talk quietly like this? No. We make ourselves known. We speak out. We show that we care. And we demand that they open up this legislative process. I've had enough of the gang of 8 there and the gang of 4 here and the gang of 12 there. I've had enough of the damn czars. This is America. We don't have czars and we don't have gangs of legislators. We have a president, we have a Congress, and we have a judiciary, damn it. And they're supposed to function openly. And we're supposed to have an opportunity to participate in their deliberations. And we do not. Or should I talk like this? Quietly, so nobody hears us. And then I'll have somebody pat me on the head as being reasonable, thoughtful. You can be reasonable and thoughtful and passionate and outspoken all at the same time. All at the same time. Just like our founding fathers were. I mean, hell, they went to war, didn't they? And no, I'm not suggesting that. I'm making a point of logic. That when a nation is spiraling out of control, when the institutions are not functioning properly, when the financial heart and soul of this country is being destroyed, you can see it happening in little countries. It just takes a little longer in bigger countries. Well, by God, speak out, and speak out loudly and passionately. Not in hushed tones. No whispering. You love this country, damn it, then say so. And I don't mean just say I love it. Speak out. Congress, you open your damn deliberations up to we the people. You are supposed to represent us. I don't know what the hell the AFL-CIO and the Chamber of Commerce are working on behind the scenes with the Gang of 8. I've had about enough of that. This damn Obamacare is the devil. And this Obamacare is wrapped around your throats. It's wrapped around the throats of your family. It's going to break this nation, and it's going to destroy your health care. And it was done in secret. Same way. 3 years after they passed it, we're still finding out what the hell's in this law. This is our damn country, and they don't get to do this to us.